Hey, we're here back in the shop, and it's time to finish Strega. We've been repairing them for the last week or so. Want to do the rest of the cosmetic paint work, get all our hardware back in, and get out to the field and see if he's still going to be a contender for our test program. Anyway, got this nice postcard from Rory Tennyson, and I'll add it to my shop library right now. Anyway, we're also right in the middle of testing Brodak dope, and we're testing it on several projects at the same time. One of them is the one we're working on now. Also the I-beam Spitfire, and all of this is being recorded, so hopefully we can all gather the information together and make our finishing adventure every year a very pleasant thing. And thanks to John for all the time and effort he's put into this project too. Oh, on the last tape you may remember, and this is a 2-tape set, by the way. You can't squeeze this all onto one tape. I don't care how you do it. You can see Mumbo over here putting his little pieces back together. And at the time, I'm sure everybody was thinking, he'll never get this done. What is he wasting his time for? They were laughing. I know. I've heard a lot of ridicule in my time. Heard a lot of people tell me it can't be done. Eat your heart out. We're ready to lay out the red. It's a paintable day. Paintable meaning it's not pouring, it's not snowing, it's not raining. We're not being overrun by a plague of locusts, so I want to, as quickly as possible, get the red masked off on both sides and get out there and get some paint on this. And believe me, and many times in the repair, which is shown on the tape before this, I kind of was wondering if this was going to be doable even. But it just shows you if you stick with it and you tough it out, there's not many things you can't repair reasonably. Again, this is the 6th in our set of repair tapes. We now have 6, and they're available. Anybody that's needing information on how to do this type of repair, I don't know that anybody's ever put this on video before, but it's certainly something you should consider doing before you junk an airplane, or make it that fix it as good as you can and give it to somebody that might be willing to use it. First thing I need to do is get my tape and my aluminum foil out. Now, I don't have any real touch-up paint this exact color. The paint that I have, because remember, this is a 6-year-old finish, 5-year-old, I don't even know. It's old, and this is already faded. So the paint that I'm going to be using on this project has been in a dark drawer, and this has been out in the sun. I'm sure I'm not going to get a perfect match, and it was paint that I had mixed up myself anyway, so I don't know if we're even going to get a close match. Again, you can see the white. This is faded, even though this is Brodak white. This is whatever we use, Sig white, or we mixed our own at the time. The Brodak white is much whiter and brighter, but of course it hasn't been out in the sun for 6 years. I'm going to try and estimate exactly where this red ends, about 1/4 of an inch from a Brodak chip chart. Real accurate. Again, I said a few times already, I said I'm not really concerned with making a concourse finish here, but I would like to get a nice fuel-proof finish so I can do some testing. And the purpose of putting as much time in right now as I am is so that if I decide later on I want to refinish this whole plane as a project, I haven't painted myself into a corner and then I have to go back and recover it or redo it in some way. I gotta get some 1/8" tape, I can see this. These curves a little bit nicer. It's a little easier if you can use 1/8" tape instead of 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch doesn't want to bend in that tight of a radius. It's okay if you're using it as the outside corner, but on the inside you get all those little wrinkles. So I dug out a roll of 1/8" and I'll lay this out in 1/8". What I was trying to do is match up the paint to this gear block deal here. The trick is only to leave as little tape as possible. In tape, you don't want to expose a lot of the paint. And even doing it this way, you wind up on old paint that's 6-7 years old. The tendency to pick it up loses some of its adhesion. Again, tinfoil is my choice, and Walt Prey was the original one that turned me on to this, and it's worked well. Give Walt the full credit for this idea. Again, you don't have to make a perfect cut here because you're going to have the tape to fill it in. But the more of this you can block out at one time, the better. If we had a decent pair of scissors here, it would be nice. And obviously you can save that, you don't have to throw it away. Again, it'll be interesting to see if this red, how much it's faded. It won't be a question of if it's faded. I'm sure it has faded. All reds tend to fade tremendous amount. If you have a red plane, it's a good idea to, well, it's a good idea to keep everything out of the sun as much as possible. Now, whenever you take this tape, if you're doing this, I like to rub it on my shirt so it isn't overly sticky. I need to put a little piece in the corner here, of course. Now I can take this piece, wrap this around. This way you can be a little efficient anyway. Now when I flip this over, I want to make sure I don't on the edge where the paint, the overspray can get through. Just make this pretty much like a sandwich now, like a bologna sandwich, and tape these two ends together up at the other end. Have my leading edge and trailing edge ready to spray. What I did, I found this jar. This is funny. You can see what this is. This is from a long time ago, Strega red. And the problem is, what I've been doing, I've been shaking it and looking at it and trying to make a decision if I want to try to use it. But I don't have any, obviously there's no color like this in the Brodak color chip chart, so I can't really use this. And I don't want to change the whole color and then have it really be out of sync. But anytime you use up old paint like this, obviously, step one is shake the living hell out of it. Step two, try to strain it if possible. These paint strainers are available from any body shop. And usually they'll give them to you for free if you buy something, so buy some sandpaper or something. And you can see there's a lot of loose stuff. Paint gels up and congeals over the course of, what is 5, 6, geez, I wish I knew. 93 we built this plane. So 93, see now, even though there's paint in here, let me just show this. Even though there's paint in here, it's not coming out. So I'm just going to let it sit on the jar here, because I really do need a little more paint. I want to get at least a gunful here so I don't have to remix this. Now when you get to this point and you can't get any more out, big body shop trick. Pour it back. Throw the strainer away. Get another strainer. And if you shake this long enough, you'll eventually get some out of it. But it's always nice to have the touch-up paint. I believe in saving it, but problem is, like anything else, life is not infinite on paint. And in 1993, I never looked into the future and thought that here it is in 98. 5 years later, I'd be trying to match the red. And we'll see how it matches. Now see, it's done exactly the same thing. If you can see that. But what I'm doing is straining out all the schmutz. Schmutz is a nice word, by the way. My wife uses that word all the time. Okay. Now, obviously, we'll do a little test on this. Being this is old paint, I don't have my hopes to the moon that it's going to be a perfect match or that the coverage will not be real good, I'm sure of that. By the way, one of the things I want to show, let me show this up close. You can see when paint really does get old, you can see that the pigment turns to little chips and whatever. Now, if you had the equivalent of a blender, you could blend this back in, but I just find that it's just more work than it's worth. And nobody really has a blender, but you always want to strain old paint. When paint gets old, actually you should strain even new paint, but it'll make the job a little bit nicer. Good tip. The wind is really blowing out here, so I'm going to try to make this a quick and dirty. See the leaves blowing around here. Break between the wind blowing here. Let's see, normally if this was a concourse job, we would definitely spray the silver first. But right now I just like to touch this up. Get a coat of red on the spot that's showing here. Drag it out over the red that's there. Comes the wind. Well, we have had the worst windy weather lately. Look at this stuff blowing around. Whoa, whoa. Hold the airplane. So what I'll do later this afternoon, I'll add a little bit of thinner to this. It looks like it's a little bit on a thick side. Add a little bit of thinner to this. Put a second coat on and put this aside in the garage to dry overnight. Okay, this dried up as well as you could expect 5-year-old paint to be, still in the jar. Trouble is, it dried up very orange peely, so what I'm going to do is just lightly, very lightly, just scuff off the dust before I even take the tape off. And the reason is, if I go through, I want to be able to touch it up without having to re-back mask it. So all I'm doing is taking off the dust here. And then I'll take the silver foil off. You can see this is just a little bit orange peely. You can see how that's powdering right off. Now, a lot of times when paint is this old, the pigment seems to gel up and you really can't get it to homogenize. This took a little extra shaking, but I guess we're going to have some serviceable paint color here. Now, the next thing I want to do is pull off all this tape. If I can today, it looks like I'll be able to spray today. Get the yellow. And it'll just be 2 more days now, the yellow and the black, and then maybe I can even get some clear on this. Being we're in a time of the year that you really can't predict the weather at all, not even a little bit. But I also want to get, anytime you do that kind of a sanding, a little bit of M600, just to clean it up before I pull the tape. You want to pull the tape back nice and slow. Hope that we don't pull too much of the paint up, but remember, this is a we're in an area where we don't have all the choices anymore. And that's what makes this difficult, is there's places on this plane where the paint really isn't as solid as it should be. So again, we're just taking our chances. And if in doubt, the tape will always peel up a little easier. A good tip I had gotten last year from John Brodak is to, if it's not coming up real easy, warm it with a hairdryer, and that really does seem to work well too. Again, this is really, well, if you pull it straight back, pull the tape back straight back. First I want to see if I'm going to need any heat to get this off. So far it looks like it's coming off. Doesn't mean anything now. Remember, this is old material, old paint going on even an older substrate, so you really have to just be delicate, I guess. But that tip from John Brodak, that was excellent with the hairdryer. That has worked well. Let's see if we can get this end up too at the same time. And if you just go slow, I think you have your best chance of getting, at least if not getting a decent edge, getting the least amount of paint pulled back. Just straight 90 degree and go slow. Well, so far so good. It's coming up as good as I could expect anyway. One thing I know is not a good thing is when I leave this out in the garage overnight, I always bring it in the house and let it warm up an hour or so before I let it get to ambient temperature. When tape gets cold, it tends to get much stickier than it normally would be at room temperature, and it can be a problem, and I've had that problem already more than once. Yeah, it looks like we got a pretty close match on the red, the color-wise. And again, red usually is the worst color to match when it starts to fade. It looks like by saving that little bit of touch-up paint, we've really done ourselves a favor, because can you imagine trying to match this color? First off, you'd have to go buy a whole nother quart. Probably it's $60 a quart for this stuff now. It'd be very difficult. Alright, we're ready to backmask the yellow. One more little piece here. And maybe even get that, it looks like it's going to be a day we'll have no trouble painting. To get the next color. I usually try to do one color a day. Let it dry overnight. Always let tape dry 24 hours. Before I lay out the next color, which will be the yellow, just want to break the edge down. Kind of do a little shaving operation here. Any kind of credit card will do. You can hear where the edge is a little bit rattier than it really is in other places. Before we do the next color, let me wipe this whole thing down again, because each time I do this I want to get the tape residue off with M600 between coats. Okay, we're ready to do the backmasking. Okay, we've got this piece. We really need to go out a little ways, but in this piece I need to touch that up. I'll just mask off the top and this will be ready to paint. And I'm trying not to put any extra paint on here that I don't need. I'm not going any further out on this than I really have to. And that little orange stripe, I can do that by brush. It's just an 1/8 inch stripe. Anyway, if you've never used tinfoil before, about the only downside I've ever found to tinfoil is it may leave little smudges on the white paint, which before you put the clear on, you just take some Gorms and get it right off. Of course, it's aluminum, of course. And every day now, it starts to look a little bit more like we're going to be able to recover this guy. All you do is just roll the edges up like this. Saves you from having to put tape all around the edges. Again, Walt Prey gets the full credit for this one. A great idea. We've used it for many years now. Alright, we're ready to paint at last. Okay, well, the yellow is now ready to pull the tape back, and hopefully it's sunny enough. I hope it stays sunny out there. I can get the back mask to black, pretty much the same as what we did with the yellow. Get the black sprayed, then I'll need to brush that orange stripe, and then we'll be ready to see about putting this back together and getting some tests flying. Hey, this was well worth it. Now, this really wasn't perfect coverage, that's for sure, but I didn't want to build up the paint so thick that I wouldn't get a neat tape line. But there's a compromise here, and because we're not obviously making a run for the concourse here, I can't get the tape up myself. The thing that I want to do is try to get the edges neat as possible when I pull this tape back, and I'll pull it back nice and slow. Again, I may be able to hit that with a brush. It's certainly not a perfect match either. The paint fades as time goes by. That's the problem. Paint is always a problem fading. The red looks like it held up better than the yellow, in fact. Again, the key here is just be patient, pull the tape back slowly. If you have to, just hit it with a hairdryer a very little bit. A little edge there that didn't want to come off. And 2 more colors to go, and we'll have the color paint on. On this side, I'm only going to have to touch up the black and the orange right there. I probably can do that with a brush. Break down all the edges a little bit before I back mask the next color. What I have to do is interpolate a little bit here because I need to leave that little gap where the orange stripe is going to be. Again, what I want to do before I spend any amount of real time doing extremely fancy paintwork here. I just want to block in the colors, and I want to go get a couple of days of flying to make sure I don't have any structural failure inside the plane. But again, I'm still kind of glad that I decided to fix this guy, because he has been a real instrument for our test program. Served us well. And it looks like I may have stolen some time here to paint. It looks like it's still sunny out there. They're predicting rain, but still sunny.
My apartment isn't anywhere.
Amazing, our pond cover has held up pretty well so far. That's made by Dave Midgley. Anyway, I'm going to try to lay this out. It is a bright sunny day, and I hope, boy, I didn't realize it was such a nice day. I could have went flying. Alright, get set up here and get the black sprayed. Trying to work around the little impending wind that we have going on here. Always have to work around something. Anyway, this will be the end of the spraying. When this dries up tomorrow, we could paint that little orange stripe in by hand. Looking forward to getting back out and maybe even get out to the field and get some flights. The weather's like it is today. Well, we'll be flying. Famous last words. There's been so many times I've gotten up to the field. It's been beautiful at the house. Here comes the wind. And all of a sudden, it's just Hurricane City. Anyway, the old aluminum foil thing always works well. Again, I always give credit to Walt Prey for that idea. It's one we use all the time. You can see it looks like that's going to dry. That's Brodak black Brodak dope, by the way, that we have from the original test program. And I'm trying to use it whenever I can, just to get more familiar every time I use it with the product. Okay, we may have the miracle of miracles here today. It was supposed to rain all day, and it isn't raining yet. So I'm going to try to pull off the tape and everything as I always do. I still have a little orange stripe, and I still have some little. I want to try to disguise this, do some kind of little disguise work on this, and hopefully, I can get the paint, maybe even get the paint work on this finished. Get this assembled so when the weekend comes up we can get a day of flying on it again. I've been really itching. I've been flying that Cardinal with the PA-51 in it, and I much prefer this plane. He's a much better baby than the other one. So we really want to get back to our test program and It's been a long 2 or 3 weeks that we've been working on this, but I really feel like I've saved a piece of, well, not stunt history, that's for sure, but, well, we've saved a plane that really was a front row top 5 plane and put it back into the world of people enjoying the stunt ships of the world here, the club people, everybody that's flown this plane. We really have saved them, I hope.
And on Saturday night, was a good old count until 13. With Friday morning, they come Saturday night.
I still have to do the orange stripe. Before I do that, I want to shave, get all the edges as knocked down as possible. And I see I have a couple little spots where the aluminum stained the white. So I'll clean this all up with M600 before I go any further on. I just need to do the orange stripe. That's the only color I have left here. And it's the edge of a credit card that seems to work the best at knot. You always let the paint dry 24 hours, lacquer 24 hours. And then card it, shave it, whatever you want to call it. Now you see these little spots. This is from the aluminum. 4-0 steel wool will take them right off. Any little overspray you get, either Gorham's or 4-0 steel wool, take it right off. From M600 here, even though it's taking some of the red paint off, I want to be careful of that. I don't want to turn the white pink if I can help it. Got a little stuff coming off of there. You can even hear it. Because that little stripe, I can do that with a brush. There's no need to backmask the whole plane. Okay, in this case, I want to use regular masking tape. I want to just mask off this orange stripe, get it brushed on, and then see what the weather's looking like out there. Well, we don't get many days this time of year where it's, you know, you can even think about painting outside. Now, I made a little test here. This was the orange that matched Strega. Now, here's the problem. I don't have any other orange in the shop, by the way. And you can see down at the bottom what's happened. It's all dried out. So what I did, I put a little bit of Rejuvenator in here. Rejuvenator has a lot of penetration. Now look, see, it's just solid Glock at the bottom. Because what's happened is all the carrier agents have evaporated, and basically the reason is I didn't have the lid on tight. So this is maybe one of the good uses for Brodak Rejuvenator here. Maybe we're going to discover it. I'm going to just stir this up until I have paint again. Because the pigment doesn't evaporate. It's only the carrier agent. So this gives you one other way of using Brodak Rejuvenator. This, by the way, looks like it's going to work fine. I'm going to just keep stirring it until I have paint. But you can see, now this is 1994 paint. So if the Rejuvenator restores the old paint, I think we'll add one little piece to our puzzle here. Now you can see what's happened. The Rejuvenator has turned it back into paint. This is really a nice little touch. Now the choice would be is I don't have the paint that matches this, so that would be a problem. These were all colors that I probably, going back that far, I mixed on my own. It's probably not an exact match to any orange. So this really, if you have a jar of dried out paint, throw some Rejuvenator in there, or a little bit of the retarder will even work, and see if you can restore the paint. Again, we're going to use this as a little test. We're using this whole plane as a test, but But that homogenizes up real nice. And we're going to find more uses for this rejuvenator as we go on, I'm sure. Now this will be the test here. This is not the first choice of doing things, but like being a Marine, you have to improvise sometimes. This is drying. There's a couple little spots I want to touch up, and I've been looking around here. First off, I had this little hole. I put a little bit of rejuvenator on that hole, and it looks like it's sealed. See, there was a hole there. You can see right there. There's no hole there anymore. It seems like that's an instant patch. I'll put a little bit of white over that. Again, keep in mind what we're trying to do. I'm not trying to make this, if we were doing a full concourse finish, all this would be done differently. I'm trying to get this back into flyable status, so it roughly is the same as when I was doing the original part of the test program. Now, I could spend an infinite amount of time. I could do some kind of ink line thing here to make this white a little less obvious. I could do redo the gold leaf lettering. I don't have any gold leaf. I'd have to go out and spend $30 just to do one letter on each side. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try to do that. I'm only looking for things that I can touch up that'll make it look a little more business-like without paying that ultimate price of putting hundreds and hundreds of hours into this. And so far, being this repair has gone so well, I'm really looking forward to getting some flights on it and see if the trim is all out of whack. Because we've had the body broken, and I want to see if that's going to hold up. I don't want to spend an infinite amount of time on this either. And you can see, of course, the white doesn't match at all, because this white has been out in the sun for 5 years or 4 years or some amount of time anyway. But it looks like the yellow, the orange and the yellow, they're going to be totally usable. So learn something every day, and that's the fun of modeling. I went around as many little spots as I could with the touch-up brushes, because there's always little spots because of a repair this severe that you're not going to get really right on the first shot here. But I want to let this dry for a little while, and then I want to, well, the main thing is the weather. I'm trying to see if we're going to have a paintable day out there. This idea of trying to rush to get this done today, I don't know. While I'm doing this and waiting for paint to dry, there's a chunk missing out of the rudder here, and you can see what I've done. I've just dressed it off with a blade. Now I want to get a little piece of filler wood to go in there. This is just stuff I'm touching up while the rest of the paint is drying. Now I just CA'd a piece of wood in there. Anytime you get a dent like this, the easiest way is just cut it out and fill it in with a new piece, hopefully with the grain going in relatively the same direction. There's really no easy way out here. You can't bring the wood back to the shape it was. And I've tried to fix even this one with little drops of epoxy and stuff, and it's so hard that you can't sand it or anything. Kind of a nuisance. That paint is almost dry now, so I'm just trying to fill in little areas here while I'm waiting for things to dry, and it looks like we will be able to paint today. Boy, and that'll make all the difference in the world, not having to wait. Just a Q-tip with just a drop or two of CA on, just to harden that wood up. This will need a couple of coats. Edge here is where the stooge, just from releasing a plane, is worn off the paint or worn it thin. As long as I'm waiting for things to dry, I can just touch this up. I know we're never going to get this red to match, so it's hopeless, and I don't want to get into a major thing here. So what I did, I just masked this off, and I'm going to make a little black outline around it. And it will be a lot less objectionable than seeing that piece missing there. Anyway, one of the things I find in trying to keep planes alive for a long time, longevity, as Martin Luther King said, like any man, I would like to live. Well, I'd like to see my planes live too. But a little maintenance certainly goes a long way, and all these little touch-ups, little areas where you don't let fuel into the plane, even after all these years and after a lot of hard use, a little maintenance goes a long way. This, by the way, is Brodak Black from the original test that we did. And if you look around at the gnats, you'll see a lot of people have this black outline around their tail. And this is the reason that a rudder always takes a beating. I've done this on many other planes. Good way to disguise the repair without making it a major hassle. Anyway, the more little places you can keep the maintenance up, I just think in the long run it winds up being a good investment, being an excellent investment. That doesn't even look bad. In my box of ink line and stuff, look how convenient this is. I just happen to have my Strega. I want to make sure. As long as I have this, I wasn't going to do this, but as long as I have it. Yeah, that's that guy. I'll just get an ink pen as long as I'm going to put a coat of clear or two on this. I guess it's reason enough not to ever throw these things away. Anyway, the little 64th plywood template. So handy. If I didn't have it, I'd have to make like a Xerox copy of that one that's on there. Now, if you can't get the ink to stick, and it looks like this is sticking reasonably, wipe the surface with some talcum powder, just dust it on and wipe it off. A lot of times that'll get you through. See, this is a detailed touch. I would not have taken the time to make all these templates and everything else, but if I already have them, just makes it so nice. We'll let that dry up and then we'll take the template off. I think you can figure out some of the tricks are use a wide pen, a 1.0 to do the outline. Use a thin pen. In this case, this is a, we can't even read it, but it's a smaller pen. Thinner lines. And now it's only a question of, hey, and I got to tell you this funny story with Bill Rich. One day Bill Rich called up, true story. He says, man, Wendy, I'm having a trouble painting these checkerboards on. What a pain in the neck. And I had just gotten done doing this. And I said, oh, Bill, you didn't do them with ink? And when I said the word ink, the phone went silent. He said, oh, you son of a gun. And he had done one little rudder or one little thing and it had taken him all day. And this basically goes so quickly, it's ridiculous. And now the trick is, take one of your pens, start at one end, let it dry, of course, and just Such a good trick. Just fill in every other box like paint by numbers. This is so idiot proof. Best one too is when we had Brian Kiefer in the shop and he was doing thousands of these for Jim Damerel. I mean thousands. Jimmy's plane, the whole bottom of the plane was checkerboards. And poor Brian, I mean, he was blind by the end of the night. But really a good technique if you want to pick up something you can use to, you know, add a little dimension to your plane, a little technique. You just do one now, just fill in the blanks one by one, let it dry, and you can put a coat of clear over that. Pretty cool, I know. I'm just trying to make a mirror image here of the little gas caps and things. Not, I have a whole set of plywood lettering templates, and somebody borrowed them. I spent an hour looking for the things. This, because it's on the bottom, I'm just going to freehand this in and leave it in ink. I'm not even going to gold it. Now what it'll mean is if I decide later on to do a final, you know, who knows what kind of finish here, one of the choices I'll have at this point in time, I can just put the gold leaf right over the black. But this will certainly, again, you're trying to just disguise the fact that it's been crashed. Now what's handy is because it's taken us a few extra days, the dope is shrunk up, and that of course before we fly it and do a couple of test flights, be prepared to retrim it somewhat. It'll be a very interesting thing. I want to get a couple of coats of clear, and like I said, the weather today is really paintable, and that's very unusual right now. We don't get a lot of days this time of year where it's reasonable to paint. And since we can't paint indoors anymore, we really cherish those days. Anyway, this side will be ready to put some clear on. I got to go over, flip it over, do the other little emblem. Now what's going to be a major part of fixing this while this clear is drying, I pieced the cowl together with all the little pieces. Boy, is that a mess. Again, the last of the wooden cowls. And just fudge this in. Yeah, I have the whole thing in plywood, but believe me, somebody's got it. And I can't blame poor Jackabone anymore. It's not him. I took a little gold paint because I was looking at this and I just wasn't real crazy about the way it looked, but I think that'll do. Not an exact match because the other part of it of course is gold leaf, but it's certainly, when it's flying, it won't look objectionable, I hope. And boy, I wish I remember who had my patterns. Try to repeat all the little techniques I used on the bottom. Since it's redundant, I don't want to just record it over and over again, but same thing. I got a couple little ink line spots I want to try to match if I can with templates, even though this is a rough area. That's where we had the major part of the repair. So you think this is funny? I had loaned these to Kent and Larry. Here's the letters. They were in the box with all the ink lines, instead of in the box with the letter sets. All the templates, so, just shows you. Look at this, I even had the note in there when I sent it to them. Oh, man. Funny, I know you're going to think I'm making this up, but I take out all the Strega lettering. And by the way, Larry, I owe you an apology, Larry and Ken. I got all the Strega lettering that I cut out of 16th plywood. I'm looking. The one letter I need is the N. Guess what? No N. And I'm cursing them out. I'm saying, I'm going to go get on a phone with these guys. And it was stuck. Well, you think I'm disorganized when you look at these videos. You're right. I am. Anyway, I want to lay this out. I have the little chip even. I even have a plywood template for the chip. Isn't this cool? Anyway, not that I'm going to make a perfect match, but it seems like a sin not to do this as long as we have the template. Larry, if you only knew how I was trying to figure out who had these. Now I need to do a double image here. I just realized, ooh, this is going to be more complicated than I thought. I need to do a double image if I'm going to do gold leaf here. Ooh. This will put me to the test. Not that that's just what I need too, is to be put to the test here. Anyway, I always have this. When I originally did the gold leaf the first time, I mean, you know the thing is going to crash, it's going to break right on the gold leaf. It couldn't break on some other part. But, hey. Anyway, this is a double image here. I just, in my own brilliance, just figured that out. I have to double image this, let that dry, and then double image it back. Anyway, it does pay to have the templates, believe me. Now I really could, of course, take some thin paper and make a tracing at the bottom. I'm going to go down later and correct that A that's on the bottom, because now I do have the template. But I really am a lot more organized than I appear to be. If only that were true. And believe me, if we decide we're going to do a full refinish on this, I'll go buy some more gold leaf. Okay, now it's a question, once that dries, coloring in the shadow first. In fact, this may even be dry already. A lot of people don't realize you can do your whole lettering job with ink. And if you were going to build the same plane over and over again, or name your plane the same thing, you know, the whatever, it would pay to make the templates, that's for sure. Okay, now obviously just get a little gold paint and try to make that match. We're closing in on this. Now the thing that makes this a challenge, obviously we know it's not going to be a perfect match. We're just trying to make it as close as we possibly can. And it's basically fill in between the ink lines. The old trick of painting into the corners seems to work, at least reasonably here. Now what I want to do is I want to put, I think I really will get this painted today. I really will get the clear on today. Sneaking up on losing the temperature out there though. So as soon as this is dry to the touch, I want to get out there, set this up so I can get at least one coat of clear on it. Again, just see maybe 2 coats of clear. And then obviously that'll have to dry a day or two. And what we've been doing this time of year is we're working on several projects at the same time, and of course what makes it complicated is we're always trying to arrange it that one is drying while we're working on the other one. Like the Spitfire and like the tweener program. And anyway, it certainly looks better than if we didn't do anything at all. That's for sure. Alright, I'm going to just wait till this dries up and get outside and get some clear on this. Rodak clear. Now I want to I just cut a hole right in the tin foil and put it right on. I want to make the parting line right in the middle of the fillet for this. And everything from there out I'll try to blend and get clear on the whole thing, but then a couple extra coats in here, a couple extra coats where we have the lettering. Now I just started. I took a rough guess at the mixture here. And I don't know if we're going to be close. I put almost 2 to 1, 2 thinner to 1 Rodak dope. So I want to get a little test. Notice that I'm doing the bottom first. See if I'm close on the mixture. It looked so nice this morning. It was totally sunny. Now I look ready to paint it. Ready to rain or snow. I'm looking to see if I'm going to get any blushing. If I am, I have to put a little bit of Rodak retarder in here. I'm trying to see just how humid it is, and if this is any hint of fogging up, I'll go right to 10% retarder. Just imagine, today is definitely not the... It started out to be sunny, but it's not sunny anymore. But it looks like we have a reasonable level. I want to let it dry. Now I'll let this sit 10-15 minutes before I do anything else to see if it's going to fog over on me. You see what kind of foggy, hazy kind of a crappy day, in fact, to be doing this. But when like I said, always have a can of retarder handy too. Just you see, the minute you see blushing, add the retarder. Like I'm trying to look here. Well, so far so good. Okay, still no blushing so far, but we will monitor it. Now I'm going to go do some other work in the shop, but I'm going to just keep an eye on this. About every 5 minutes look at it, and if I, as a last resort, if I was to see this starting to blush, I can add some retarder right to that mix that's in the gun, come right out and spray right over the fogged up area, and that'll usually release it. You really don't want to go more than about 10% retarder, though. 10. You're pushing it even at 10. But anyway, this, hard to believe, like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whatever. This plane was lunch meat. Starting to look like we're going to, hey, I get a thrill out of it anyway. I mean, I don't know what other people are thinking right now, but I'm losing my templates, losing everything here, but it seems like we're bringing a Titanic back from bringing the Lusitania back or something. Now, for sure, let that dry before I even think about a second coat. And maybe what I'll do is give a light second coat to the top, very light to the bottom, because again, I don't want to add a whole lot of weight here. You can see what has happened here is it's been roughly a half an hour. Look at this, a mosquito just flew right into the wet paint. Oh man, come off of there. The paint is not really dry yet, and already I'm just starting to see a hint of fogging up. So rather than run the risk that it's going to fog up worse or be a problem, the Silksman is getting soft up here. What I'm going to do, I've just already mixed it up. I mixed up 10% retarder in here, and I want to just get a flash coat on here. You know, and if you're in doubt, the trick is always paint the bottom first. Wait, see, I can see it's just starting to fog up. But again, it looks like it's going to rain any minute now. Let's look real close. This first coat is dry to the touch, at which point it would have fogged over. Now this is, let me get the rest of it out. This has got some retarder in it. And I just want to mist it on. I don't want to put a heavy coat on. The last thing you want to do when you're trying to get rid of blush is put a heavy coat on. Put a mist coat, and the mist coat will bleed most of the, hopefully, loosen the surface and let the moisture escape. And the trick is it takes longer to dry. As it's drying, the moisture is coming to the surface. That's it now. Now we'll see how that looks in another half an hour. Trick is always, anytime you paint one side of a surface, paint the other side too. Let it soften up the paint, the tissue. And again, I've got a little bit of moisture on this side also. We did this side first. Just a mist coat, nothing heavy now. This will loosen it up even more. Give it another half an hour to sit out here. Luckily, we got enough projects in the shop to keep us busy. Always give a little extra to the edge. And give that another half an hour. Now I just put a little more of this retarder. Just a little more because I just noticed a hint of fogging up out here. And I've let this dry. Boy, it is almost dark out here. Let me take a look at how it's coming together. It looks like it has a real nice gloss, but it's not the gloss I'm worried about. Now, so far so good. Anyway, I'm going to dust on one more really thin coat. One thin coat and that's it on this. Anyway, you can see the tissue. The new tissue is going limp a lot sooner than the other tissue because, of course, there's a lot less material on there. Let's see. Just a dust coat. Now, this is more retarder than I really like to use. I'm not comfortable using a lot of retarder, but we're in a unique situation. If this were a Spitfire or something, I would just simply wait until the next day to paint it. Again, this is going to be it. And what I'll do is get this in the garage drying. Hope that it doesn't rain tonight. We have a problem with leaks in the garage roof. And the other day, I just brought the plane in, plus it was raining. And I noticed where it was dripping through the roof, it was dripping right where the plane was. So, getting kind of gun-shy about putting things in that garage. Especially when there's a chance it may rain. Again, just a light coat, a mist coat. And hopefully tomorrow this will all be dry. I guess we're going to find out. I almost forgot the tip weight box. Anyway, you can see what on a refinish basis how nice that material lays down. Well, it really lays down nice. Now, this dried up pretty well, actually. But again, what I want to do, where there's rough edges here, I just want to knock them down with some 1200 paper before I put a final coat or two of the clear on. It looks like it's a little sunnier today, so I don't think we'll need to add retarder, but you know when you're going to do this, you're always going to wind up going through little spots. So I always be prepared to do a little touch-up. In fact, I've sanded around the edge of this letter. And I'm prepared just to do a minimum of touch-up here, even with just the ink pen on this panel. Another thing this has given me a good test of course, this originally was finished with Brodak dope and with Sig dope. And we've gone over it with Brodak dope. Now we've even gone over the repair areas a few times. So if there was going to be any kind of a problem in compatibility, in terms of compatibility, we would think it would already have surfaced, but so far it looks pretty good. And there definitely are some little spots that are going to need a little touch-up here. And this gold, I forgot to do the little dot with the gold. See, you can tell I was having a tough day. Did not even put the gold, but doesn't matter. A little sanding will kill all the little paint edges now that we have some clear on it. Get this ready for one final coat, maybe two. Again, any repair like this, you really have to decide ahead of time just how much time you're willing to spend on doing this. And this is also letting me see just how quickly the Brodak dope sands out, of course, real quickly. Trying to get rid of all the high spots here. Not going to spend too much time because, again, that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to try to make it that it's a usable test plane again. Now it'll be interesting too when we actually get to the field and get to fly this again, because it's going to require some retrim, I'm sure. The wing isn't going to be level. CG probably has changed some. It'll probably need a change in tip weight, because most of the weight is on the outboard wing anyway. And we'll do a total weight when we get to that point. But interesting to see how much performance we've lost in the course of repairing this, or in some cases you gain. If a plane is too light to begin with, a lot of times you'll pick up line tension by adding an ounce or two. You pick up line tension in spots you never had it before. Now we'll go take a look at what we can do to touch this up. Nice and cold out here this morning, but it looks like the humidity is less. Again, I'll do a little test on the bottom, make sure it's not clogging up on it. And the wind, of course, just to make it more interesting, the wind is blowing around like crazy here. Now we're going to let that dry and just get some idea. Get an idea how much orange peel is on there. Just let that dry up. If it doesn't, at this point in time, if it doesn't fog up, I won't put any retarder in the paint at all. If it fogs up, I'll run down and put some retarder in. Pretty much the same as yesterday. All right, it looks like we lucked out with the humidity anyway. By the way, one thing I never mentioned, I was showing somebody how to spray the other day, and they hold a gun in one hand. Always hold the hose in the other hand, or you can buy these real thin hoses. It's always a help. If you notice, these are the things I never remember to put on the tape. It keeps this from blowing around. Wow, that wind is blowing. Not missing a flying day. Give one final coat to the top of the wing, and then we're going to put this away to dry. Looks like it's drying up very well today. Again, I'm trying to get extra on the new areas and do very little on the parts that already have plenty of clear. Okay, next step is to get rid of all the tin foil and take a look at how this paint dried up. Now I just did a quick layup here for one reason. I wanted to see what the weight gain on this repair was. Now, what it was, the plane was 64 ounces when we had a 60 in it. It added an ounce. The hardware and the pipe and all the fittings and stuff, it was 65. And it looks like, well, I don't have the cowling on, so it's not a real good test. We're at 64, 67. It looks like we've gained about, well, maybe realistically, we'll take the cowling into account, between an ounce and 2 ounces for this repair. But I want to find out if this paint is going to gas off and lose any weight in the next couple days, day or so, whatever. But we still have what looks like right now a 67 ounce plane. Probably with the cowl it'll be 68, so it should still be in the range of, you know, that we're not too heavy yet, I hope. Famously, it's always too heavy. Fully extra. And this will be a nice little handle for working on. What I want to do is using an easy way to get this edge nice, and the edge along here, needless to say, is with a Dremel tool. Oh, I want to get that done. I want to get some finish on this. Well, it looks like we have a paint day. Obviously, no guarantee this weather is going to last. May even be able to get a test flight in a couple of days. And a good old Bud McKnight sanding stick is the easiest way to knock down the edges on a fiberglass. Obviously you want to get a dull surface. That little bit of pigment in the resin will probably help with our coverage. I want to dress off all the edges. And it's going to be a little bit of an ordeal trying to line up these holes again, because I noticed in the original parts these don't line up exactly well, and I'm going to have a little bit of a problem getting them to line up, but I think I figured out a way of doing it. By the way, if you're doing this kind of work on a cowling, it's good to leave this support piece in right till the very end, because it's convenient as heck to be able to hold it this way. If you have to hold it this way, it's always bending and twisting. Just a nice little way, and the last thing, just grind that away. Nice little tip. Anyway, I was happy to hear that Matt Newman is trying to mold cowlings now, and hopefully will be a help to him. Our article for the magazine is almost through on molding the carbon gear. A lot of little molding technology going on. And I never want to miss an opportunity to thank all of the people, Ed Gallagher, Wayne Triven, Dennis Toth, all of the people from Florida Glue, George Spar, that have all contributed into our program. And we hope we'll be successful at passing that information along. And you can see how that powders right off. You start to see the little shiny spots. That's where the sanding stick pays big dividends. You get right at them. Another thing too, the dye in the resin helps show you the high spots. And obviously it adds no weight at all to do it, so it's just like a free thing. Anyway, we're really looking forward to this weekend. It's supposed to be nice weather and pliable weather, they predicted, and I'm going to try to put a little push on to get this finished. Keep in mind though, one of the criteria is I don't want to fly this while the dope is still wet. The problem with that is the dope doesn't develop its full strength for a few days until it shrinks down. And I want to retrim the plane, but I want it to be a meaningful retrim, not just a, you know, I'm going to have to do it 4 times in a row. And then we're going to get back to a very, very successful Jet 50 testing program, as weather permits. We're also getting, I ordered today, some Powerblast Fuel. Do an extensive test on Powerblast Fuel. I know a lot of people are concerned since Doug Taffender went out of business that they won't have good quality fuel. They'll have to use RC fuel and add their own castor oil and stuff. Well, George has assured me that's not the case. Okay, that's sanded out really nice. Next step is I'm going to obviously pull this piece off and trim away all this extra plywood, and this will be ready to set up the mounting pieces. Remember, when this was in the original cowl, it really was flimsy, and I always had trouble with the hold downs. I had modified the front. It was a constant pain in the neck, so now I'd like to straighten some of that out if I can. What I wanted to do before I go any further, I wanted to weigh this up. It's a little over 11 grams for the cowl, and that's a very reasonable weight considering it's got 3 layers of fiberglass on it. And I think it's going to be a little more durable now than if we didn't put the fiberglass on. It probably only adds a couple of grams doing that, but you really get that. Any plane you've ever seen, the first part on the plane that ever wears out is the cowling, and this one is living proof of, and that's definitely the last wood cowl I'll ever make. But there, we've salvaged it. Okay, now, the problem is this. When we retrofit this plane, these bolts were up here. This bolt was up here. This is now not, and this piece was broken off on one side. This side here, it was cracked. But I know these are not in alignment, so what I'm going to try to do here is marry up the piece exactly where it should be. Should be, would be, or could be. And I see I got to grind to clear the needle valve, so I know this is out of alignment a little bit up here. But I wanted to just drill a little pinhole in each one to see if I'm anywhere as close to those 440 bolts, and if I'm not, I'm going to have to do a little fudging here. You drill a hole in plywood and you want to make a pilot hole, an easy way to do it is with one of these little cutters. Because what this does, it doesn't tear the plywood apart like a drill. A drill will go almost through and then all of a sudden it just shatters everything. This kind of burns its way through and makes a reasonably nice hole. Now it looks like after looking at this a few times, like I'm close, and this one needs to go down, but the cowl needs to go forward, so I don't want to use that one for alignment. It means that one is okay, and I need to go back with this one, because I want to line up the nose ring. Now I can line up this little notch here. Boy, is this difficult to do. What a pain. Make a little mark on this. Now, believe it or not, this is one of the biggest pain in the necks to this whole plane. And I wound up using the original ring that we had made, and I'm going to just grind off these once I get it away from the engine. And this really is the worst of the retrofits, but the cowl is nice and solid now. So, okay, she's ready to paint. Well, let's hope it's paintable weather out there. I couldn't find a spot to conveniently put the knife since this is all so thin. So what I did, I glued a little block of wood on here, and now I can hold that while I spray it. That'll be a little handy way to spray it. All right, I'm going to go mix up a little bit of Brodak white. Looks like we can paint outside, hopefully. Well, you never know with the weather. A couple coats of white on this, maybe a coat of clear, and we'll be ready to fly the plane. Thing we have to deal with today. It's nice and sunny, but the breeze is blowing. What a pain. Now, a couple of things. I wiped this down with M600. If I can get it right up there. good trick is if you have enough guns, I just bought another gun, is leave white in one gun, clear in one gun, and all your other colors can go in another gun. That's like a cheap, easy way to do it. These guns are selling for like 30 bucks now, $35. You almost would save that back in a thinner of cleaning them in the course of some time. Anyway, the Brodak white covers like just perfect, even though there's no silver base. Now what I want to do while it's tacking up is put a wet coat on here. Since we have some sun, let it stay out to dry. Maybe it'll even dry with a little gloss if we're lucky. Notice there's no primer, there's nothing underneath it. You can put Brodak dope right on top of fiberglass. I don't know if you can see the gloss on that, but and needless to say, we'll get a coat of clear on this later, and we'll be ready to put the plane together, assemble it. Now, you'd never know that was the same cowling. That's amazing even to me. And put it over there to dry. If you can see the tip on this XL blade, I've taken an XL blade and a parting wheel and just put the shape of a hinge in here. And what I'm going to do with this, I want to run this through each hinge because I need to retape that hinge line. Now one side of course didn't get destroyed, but this side obviously we had to remove the hinge line tape. And I'll clean all the hinges up. This will take the paint right off, then I can re-oil the hinges with just a drop of oil, and then I can retape the hinge line. And we're closing in on being ready to fly here. You can see how easily that gets all the extra paint. One thing that's really a nuisance, if you have paint in the hinges and you don't clean them up, you never seem to get that nice free controls. And then the last thing is, take a Q-tip, a little bit of M600, and that'll get the last little bit of junk off of there. And we'll go right down both sides of the hinge line, and we'll be ready to tape this back. Do here is I roll up a paper towel to hold this flap down in full deflection while I lay that tape out in place. One of the brands of hinge line tape that works real well. Some of the tape is way too sticky, some of the tape is not sticky enough, and this is a good compromise. This is the brand, and it doesn't even tell you what kind of bogus brand, doesn't even say what brand it is. But I've been buying this in a packaging supply store, and it's very, very thin, so it adds no resistance into the controls. Now what I do is I lay this out on a flat piece of glass and trim it. Now I have to roll back the blanket there, move the plane. But see how one side has already got a lot of wrinkles in it? Well, I'll take the other side, trim off about a ½ inch piece, the width of the wing, and I'll be all set to go. Now, I don't press this down on a table. I just want to use the ruler as a guide. It doesn't have to be real accurate. We're going to trim most of it off anyway, but let's see how easily we can lay this out. Now one of the things taped hinge lines do typically is add some corner to the plane, but they also equalize the fact that one hinge line gap might be a little bigger than the other, so it reduces the amount of trim effort you have to put. And even if I wasn't using taped hinge lines, I would want them on a retrim anyway, because it'll narrow it down to less things that need to be trimmed out. These should both be, if they're both sealed, they should be both equal. It's an equal panel plane, equal flap plane. So in theory, this should be one less thing to trim. Real lucky, what I always try to do is when I replace one piece of tape, usually by then the other pieces of tape are getting ready to come off, and this is one of them. Now see, if you get the right tape, it'll come up without taking the paint off, yet it won't come off when you're flying. And as I just said that, a piece of paint came off, here comes another piece. So this tape you can see is really old, so it could be, we'll do a little touch up on that, but it's got deteriorated tape, does not have a long life. At best you get maybe 100, 150 flights out of it. I've never found any tape that lasts forever. And in this case now I want to M600 that down, put a little touch up paint before I seal this back up. Before you ever put new tape down, you want to get that really clean. M600 is always the best for cleaning. And this kind of a touch-up, even a Sharpie marker will be better than paint because it won't pull back up. It always seems like it's easier to get it down into the groove first. Kind of letting it go in that way. Came back from her class. What do you call this? This is big crackle finish?
Crackle finish with a stencil.
Maybe we could get Brodak to make crackle dope.
Okay, and that's small crackle. Also
so you have two boxes, one small crackle.
One for Stacy, one for me.
All right. Which one are you going to give her?
She gets the one with the green.
What are the projects? Oh my gosh.
Okay, well I have other projects. This was a little box that I decoupaged.
Oh, okay.
A little wooden box.
That one's nice.
And this one, I actually poured the porcelain for this.
You made that in a mold?
I made that in a mold. I poured the mold. I mixed the ingredients, made the mold.
Cool.
That was weeks ago. And today I finished it.
Okay, cool.
I sanded it and I finished it.
What is this, a base of a lamp?
This is a base of something...
Oh, with cherubs.
Of cherubs to be made into a lamp. And guess who has the tools to make this into a lamp?
I'd never guess.
George
Aldrich.
George Aldrich? I bet George does. Hey, George!
All right, that looks good. Where are you gonna put this when you're done?
I don't know. Maria found this at an estate sale, and she took it home. She said, "You know, Karen would love this."
All right.
It's broken, so she paid very little for it. But she said it used to hold a dish in here, a candy dish.
Yeah. She
said Karen would love this.
Make a lamp. Yeah. All right. So the next craft project is going to be make a lamp out of Strega.
Out of Strega.
When I die, they're going to make a lamp out of me. Craft projects put aside. Here's the final thing. These little squeegees, these body, I don't know what you call it, these body putty squeegees that we use for molding. These are a good thing to just tuck the tape that's on there right down into the hinge line. And if it doesn't come out neat, obviously do it over. I always figure the tape lasts a half a season, or, you know, couple hundred flights, but it doesn't last forever. At least I haven't found it to be that it lasts forever. Now it is just a brutally cold morning. It feels and looks like, I don't know if you can see the sky, it looks like it's going to snow. There's no wind at all yet. What I did, I got up real early in the morning because I wanted to get out here and get at least one or two flights, couple of flights anyway. See if this thing with the new wing is still in trim. If it's anywhere near needing any major adjustment, And the biggest thing of all is we've never run this motor, never even had the motor started with the 280 Venturi in it. So that'll be a new part of the adventure. We need to pitch a prop. We need to get the wing back to being level. Get the handle set if we've knocked the controls out of alignment. And the biggest thing is you never know at this point in time. You really can't tell. Before I put any more time into buffing and cleaning and touching up the plane, before I would go to that level, I want to get a couple of weekends of flying out of it, just so I know, because you never know if there's any internal damage that you can't see. The belt crank mount could be broken, something else could be worn out. You don't know. This is a 6-year-old model. You just never know. So I want to get out there. This is the first time I'll ever have the 280 in the plane and running. One part of the repair I was real happy with was the way the rebuild on the cowling worked out. But anyway, we never know if the wing is level. I never know, for instance, if the gear blocks are damaged from the crash. There's a lot of things that are just still suspect. So before you would put that big giant amount of time, all the buffing and wet sanding and everything else, plus the model now is 2 ounces heavier at 68 ounces. 67, 68, it may require a decent amount of retrim. Yeah, it's funny, it seems like only yesterday we were back here. We were in the same stooge. The only difference is now you can notice the field, there isn't a leaf on any of the trees. There's a couple leaves up in the corner there. Basically now, even though this field gets hawky when the leaves are on the trees, sometimes it's even worse when there's no leaves. There's pockets of air flowing through here. I don't really know I don't know what the right word is, the reason for it, but this is a crazy place to fly. But it's the only game in town. We've lost all our other flying fields, and I just heard that they lost the Cleveland flying field. It's plowed under, so I guess we should be thankful for small miracles. Anyway, one of the things that I was just mentioning, and I wanted to keep track of it, is I epoxied this big crack in the back of the fuselage, and because the plane mounts there, I want to check that after every couple flights. I don't know, again, the whole wing was removed, so I want to get a couple of flights, see if the wing is up or down. I don't want to be too cute about it right away, especially if the air is going to be unpredictable like it is. And I don't know that the extra 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces of weight we've put on is going to be a real handicap, no handicap, or we're going to have to park in a handicap spot. I don't know yet. For sure though, it sure is a good feeling, at least on my part. It's like having an old friend back that you haven't seen in a long time now. And the truth is, what happens when you fly a plane, almost every day like we do in the summer, what happens is you form a little friendship. I guess that's the right word. Like a friendship like you form with my handicapped fish. But what happens, you do form some kind of a friendship, and it gets to be a comfortable old shoe. And not having him around the last couple of weeks has been, kind of disappointing. Anyway, we've started on the 20th gallon. We've already ordered Powerblast Fuel. I want to still have some taffender fuel when the Powerblast gets here, so that I can test it, see if the needle setting changes, the elapsed time changes, anything changes. So I'll know pretty much which way it's going. George has assured me the fuel has got the right amount of castor in it. That's really the main concern with any fuel, that they don't cheat you on the castor oil. Even if they cheat you on a nitro, the world doesn't end, but when they cheat you on the castor, these motors are expensive enough and hard enough to get in the state of tune where you want them. Anyway, I want to take one flight nice and easy, nice and safe. Okay, first Shakedown Flight is in the bank. I made a list of what's wrong. And I made kind of an error in my own judgment. Remember I cut and changed the lead outs? Well, the handle seemed like it was in neutral, but as soon as I took off I realized, uh-oh, I never reset the handle. Not too smart on my part. Now from looking at the plane and eyeballing it, it looks like the inside stab is up just a little bit. And it looks like the wing is, well, no worse than it was before it was off the plane. And the gear blocks didn't come out on the first landing. So that's three things give me some cause for hope here. What I did is I changed the lead outs. And I didn't change them enough that it was apparent that I lost neutral, but what happened, as soon as I took off, I knew I had to shorten the downline. So what I do before I even loosen the cable, take an ink marker and mark the cable with about how much of an adjustment I think I'll need, and it looks like I'll start with maybe 1/8 of an inch. Once I have the 1/8 of an inch, the reason for marking it is if this slides through and goes, you don't have to go back to square one and waste 3 flights to find out where you were. You always maintain your square one this way. One of those nice little handy tips that you hope everybody can pick up off the video. Now during a retrim, it's one of the critical things is to get the handle back to where you're comfortable with it. And no matter how many times I do it on the ground, I always find out I take off and ooh, I need a little bit of up or down, and then I make a mental note of which way I want it adjusted for the next flight. But no matter how careful you are, it just seems like there's no substitute just to get it a couple of flights in the air and then fine-tune it. A part of this that I really want to know once I get the plane back in trim is how this 280 is going to perform. Look at this, the Stooges loosen. What I really am trying to determine, every time you make the Venturi bigger, certain very predictable things happen. The motor becomes less and less stable, more and more prone to break 242, becomes more powerful to a point, up to a point. And the biggest thing in our case here is I want to find a point at which, well, each time you open a Venturi, the 2.4 brake occurs at a higher and higher RPM. So obviously as you're raising that RPM, and we're at 11,000 right now, you have to de-pitch the prop. Now, I don't have boiling water with me, but I do have other props. And it may require, because the good prop was on the plane when it crashed, it may require findoozling around with a little bit of the pitch on the prop. But it's cold, it's kind of humid, it feels like it's going to snow in fact. And under those conditions, you expect the plane to run just a little harder and faster. I got a real loud pipe wrap, so I know I've got the pipe length pretty close. But the motor run is what I'm really looking to fine tune here, and if I can by the end of the day, again, I don't know how long the weather's going to hold out. We really, around here, you never know. And I don't want to record any flights because obviously I don't even have the handle set yet. But I am recording in my mind how the motor sounds, how it feels. And with that my initial impression of the 280 is it's going to be fine once I de-pitch the prop. And what you get with the low-pitch props and big Venturi is that instant acceleration when the plane releases out of the stooge. A good way to watch Billy Werwich's plane. His plane goes the first quarter of a lap in about a nanosecond. Okay, another relatively uneventful flight. For sure, the first thing I'm going to have to do is get a prop with less pitch on there. This one had a little bit too much pitch, and it's really, with the big Venturi and that little extra pitch, just flying a little bit too fast. You just got to take this step by step, one step at a time. Spare props, I have one that has a little bit less pitch. Not a whole lot though. That looks still a little bit too high. maybe I'll give that maybe a good time to try that 3-blade out. See, we've been always trying to up the power output of the engine to where I didn't have to trim the blade diameter. I can always run home and trim the blade diameter if I want. But I really would like to get a couple of trim flights on the plane first. I really would like to get the 3-blade working just as you buy it. Because that pitch is molded in. You don't have to move Mickey Mouse around with it. Yeah, we'll give them both a shot. Another little fine tuning on that handle, and I think we'll be ready to fly. There's definitely something to consider. Anytime that venturi gets bigger, if you want to maintain the lap speed, the prop pitch has to go down. And the opposite is true. When you make the venturi smaller, you need to add pitch. So we have a lot of variables here. We have about 24 props and about half a dozen venturis. But being we're trying to get the 280 to dial in, to come into where it'll be in its own. I want 2 tests. I want to have that underpitched, not underpitched, lower pitched 2-blade, and then the 3-blade. This 2-blade has just a little bit less pitch and a little bit less diameter. This is one of Wayne's props. The sun just came up over the mountain. Oh boy, maybe it'll warm up a little bit. Too, as the venturi gets bigger and bigger, a lot of times what can happen is the motor can get a little finicky on drawing fuel for the start. Sometimes, not always. Now this is the low pitch prop. Let's see if you're running this one around 11.4, 11.5 before. That was a little bit better in the right direction. I think we're going to have to go up 100 or 2 RPM. I want to run this off at 11.6 one time before I put the 3-blade on. Trimming the plane, one of the things it looks like is, since I put most of the weight in this outboard wing, it looks like at the point we are right now, as I'm starting to fly stunt patterns, that it's got too much tip weight. So what I'm going to do is, little by little, maybe take 1/4 ounce out per flight, see if I can recover some of that weight that I added. I probably put the weight over here, so obviously the moment arm is longer, but I've probably added maybe 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces in here. Maybe I can take 1/2 ounce out here and get the total overall weight of the plane down just a bit too. A retrim like this, just give me 1 second. I don't know what the leverage arms and ratios are, but I know, being most of that weight is out here, and I'll take 1/4 ounce out at a time. When I get home today, I'll see what the total weight of the plane is. And it's possible now, let's assume we've added 2 ounces, but we can take out 1/4 ounce, so, or 1/2 ounce. Maybe we could recover some of that weight gain. We can put it on a little bit of a diet here. I see there's a small piece in there. I'll try the small piece first before I go with a full 1/4 ounce. Just a shame we don't have a better day weather-wise for recording flights. It's really a, I don't know. This time of year you just don't get any flying. And when you do get a flight, Larry Scarinzi ties up the circle with his drone diesel or something. Come on, puppy. Okay, we're going to take one piece out for the first flight. First test anyway. Again, if you're retrimming a plane, how did the nut go? Look at this, I lost the tip weight nut. If you're retrimming the plane, it's probably on the ground. Sure, Wendy. Come out here early, don't have your coffee. Lose the tip weight nut. Forget to do the handle. Anyway, the truth is I really have been pushing myself, working late at night, and because I really feel once winter really sets in here and we get a couple of snowstorms or something, that's going to be the end of this. And I really want to be further along in this, or as far along as I possibly can be, when the winter actually sets in. Now what the hell happened? Boy, I'll tell you, when you don't have your coffee in the morning, it's a problem. I see what's happening. Gotta clean that out. Painting this, I painted the screw into the hole that oh, there we go. The screw was tight. You don't want to be threading this into the box. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see just how much we can get out. First piece is probably a little less than 1/4 of an ounce. Well, you can see we're into gallon 20 a little bit now. Spending the better part of the day fooling around trimming this plane out, retrimming it I should say, but it seems like we're making progress, and I assume within this gallon of fuel we'll be ready to fly some realistic flights here. That we've made this much progress already, I just feel real good about it. Now the engine with this prop with the real low pitch, Wayne's prop, really likes to go 11.6, even 11.7, and to me, now we're getting up in a range where it's a little too fast for my taste, so what I'm going to try to, one more flight here with the tip weight out, and I want to put that 3-blade on, because when I get back to the shop today, I can de-pitch a couple more props, and I know with this big Venturi, I know I'm going to have to go down, I'm going to have to adjust the gauge. And don't forget the air is cold here too. If we were in a real hot summer day, boy, this would be stun heaven. You know, when you get those hot summer days where the plane seems like it just needs a little more power. One thing with this kind of a setup, you're never in the point where you need more power. You're always at the point where you're trying to soften it up. And if all else fails, even with the 3-blade, I'll put a head gasket in. I'll just kill a little of the compression just so I can soften it up a little bit. But it's really got that really strong 2-cycle power. And this is the 280 spigot. This is actually the first day we're running it. So there might be some oil in the pipe from flipping it over, that kind of stuff. The fuel, it's getting warmer and warmer out here, so we're getting a nice range, and it seems like the 280 is at least so far hasn't shown me any problem. Try to get one flight with the 2-blade, one flight with the 3-blade if I can, so that George can compare them. It's the 280, the D-pitch 2-blade, and the wind looks like it's blowing almost at my back. see we're getting blown all over the place here, but at least we have one of the runs the way the needle's set a little bit on the rich side right there. That was about as rich as I can make this and still get the characteristics I want. Now the downside of, if you look at it close, is I don't have a strong 2-cycle in the overhead 8. I don't have a strong 2-cycle in the vertical and in the top of the hourglass. So I'm going to go in on the needle just a little bit, see if this is any better, and basically then try to get one flight on the 3-blade before I leave. At the end of the tape, end of the test session, Strega's back in the air, and to me it's really like a rebirth of a good friend. He's been a good friend, and as I look back over the old video that I hope you've enjoyed. Well, I don't know if you enjoy watching the lobotomies and everything else, but maybe you can pick up a little bit of information that'll somewhere down the road help you in your stunt program. As I've always said, and I'm a big believer in, you never know where the road is going to go. We never know where it's going to end. And hey, in this case we've added a twist and a turn and a switchback and a on and off ramp or something, but we're back. And it's a good feeling. On the ride home, I'll feel real good about being back with Strega. He'll be in the back of the car. I can look back at him, and it's a funny story. When I lost several planes that I've lost over my time of modeling, I look back in the car and they're not there. It's a very empty feeling if you've ever had to experience it. And like anything, we don't know how many more flights we're ever going to have. We still don't know if there's any damage that's going to surface, but I know we did learn something. We've learned a lot from this plane. And in working with the Jet 50, we've added a little bit of knowledge to our database, hopefully helped George in some ways, and for sure he's helped us. And I hope that this is going to be an ongoing thing now. We're coming up on the end of gallon 19. No, we're into 20. Boy, I'm lost how many gallons I've even spent. And on the next tape, we're going to test the Powerblast Fuel, do some more work with the props, de-pitch them. It looks like we're going to be able to live with the 280, and the more fuel I can flow through there, I know, especially as I get into more and more development on the props. It'll be very interesting. And of course we can always go back by adding a green filter. I have the black filter on there now, and we can always reduce the speed a little by de-pitching the props. So we have all the variables, and what's left? Who knows what's left? Nobody knows. I guess that's the beauty of being alive. There isn't a leaf on the tree and we're still flying. I guess there's something to be said for that. Now when we first took off and tried to do this repair, I didn't really know at that point in time, needless to say, where the road was leading, whether we'd ever be able to do it, but I guess now that you've seen the 2 videos, and I hope this will help in some way, keep some of the planes alive. And in this case, we don't know where the road is leading for Strega. He may go on for 10 years more. Who knows? Some of these planes, the Green Cardinal for instance, after the repair, they're still flying, and it's 12 years later. So people are still enjoying flying them. They're still a great asset to the hobby. And I guess that's kind of the part of life you never know. Kind of the part that makes it life instead of a computer program. You never know where the road is leading. Sometimes things you think were going to be real easy wind up taking a whole lifetime, and things you thought were going to be impossible, 2 weeks later, they're a done deal. In this case, it's just one more chapter in the adventure, and life is an adventure. For me, it's an adventure. For Karen, it's an adventure. And I hope for you, you can focus in on the adventure and what it's really all about. In the last 2 videos, I've been real proud of the fact that we've gotten this guy back into the air, and he will go on to whatever time he has left to have some useful value to the world of stunt, we hope. Either in testing motors, helping people to enjoy the whole adventure of model aviation. Well, whenever I look back at a video, it's like I'm reliving a life that I've already lived. It's really a funny phenomenon. But it's always an adventure. And if you know where you're going, it's not much of an adventure. And I guess that, to me, in my lifetime, we've come upon the time that video was possible. Of course, a lot of people just take it for granted, but to me, the video is just such a special way to share your life, to share your loves, to share your hobby. And I really hope in the future, you know, as time goes by, other people will record their adventures on video so we can share them. And in the sharing is the part of the hobby that just seems to attract people for life. And this really has been an adventure, believe me. Every time I look back at this and I say, gee, see, at that point in time I didn't even know if the wing was going to fold, if it was going to go on straight, if we were going to add too much weight, if it wasn't going to be worth doing, if it would just be, you know, unproductive time waste, but it all worked out well. Now, just worth remembering was one of the things that was inspirational to me was I had heard that Paul Walker had crashed his plane when he made the B-17, and I thought that was just such a loss for the world of stunt. And then to know that he got it back, and ultimately here he is in the Pasco Nats putting in an official flight, know that at least we all got to see it, and that we have it recorded on video. Just such a special thing. Without the video, many people would never have gotten to see this, what I feel is a monumental accomplishment in the world of stunt. And I'm still of the belief, firm in the belief, that repairing planes is always worth it if it's at all possible. Anyway, in the future of our tape subscribers, we'll get to see, let's hope, many, many enjoyable flights. Let's hope we aren't at the end of the road, that we're only at a little bit of a crossroad or a side road. And I hope we'll be sharing the whole adventure with you. There's a lot more of this to come. We have a lot of exciting things happening in the next year, in the future, and it's a future we really can't see yet, but I'm sure it's going to be full of adventures. It's that old saying, you just never know where the road's going to go. Hey, and we'll be seeing you on the next tape. Thanks again for joining us.